Yo guys, what's going on? Ed the Urban Researcher here. So as you can see, I'm currently sitting where the tank used to be. I've moved my desk, I've also moved the tank. I promised you guys an update video and that's kind of been delayed, so I've got some footage ready to show you guys, so let's get into that footage and then I'll talk about what's happened to the tank later on. So here we have Cray as you can see, and what that black wire was is I tried to buy a thing called a hydrophone, so I was quite interested in trying to see if I could get the actual sound of what the crayfish were like underwater. As you can see, they're using all their little hands all the time to move around, and I really wanted to try to see if I could get some of that sound of them sifting through the sand, looking for like the little bits of peas and food they have, or maybe like the sound of their claws or their tail. So I borrowed this hydrophone, this underwater microphone, from a friend. Unfortunately, the sound didn't really come out. I think there was something to do with amplification. I didn't quite understand how to get to work properly. So the sounds weren't particularly good. However, I did get this like really lovely footage of Cray just kind of like checking out what was going on with this microphone. Was really obsessed by the cord. I really love, you can see how much the crayfish really use their little kind of hands. They kind of search through the sand to try to find the food, and you can watch they use their smaller hands and they push food towards their mouth, or with their front claws they're often more for kind of like defending themselves or pushing large objects. And yes, as we move into there's a later clip, you can also see that a lot of people have been questioning about why I put so much sand in the tank, and this is kind of a really key thing you need to think about when you are keeping a crayfish, is where do crayfish come from? They come from areas where there would be a lot of either mud or sand that they can rearrange to make burrows for themselves. So in a natural environment they would completely rearrange, dig underneath objects, dig as deep as the object goes. Let's say the branch is submerged into the sand or the mud, they're going to dig completely underneath that stick or log or whatever it is to make themselves a burrow. So if you only put in kind of like 1 to 2 inches of sand, as they dig down they're just going to basically get to the bottom of the glass. They're not going to be able to get underneath that burrow. So that's the thing that when people are like, why have you put so much sand, why is there 12 inches of sand, it's basic to allow them to be able to create these really large caverns that go all the way beneath the objects I've put in there. And it also means that when I'm submerging burrows, hides, etc., I have that ability to kind of push them into the sand. I can put really large objects that allow them to kind of really create these zones. And as you can see here, Cray was using her front claws, you can see, basically like a bulldozer, and pushing out sand from underneath her hide section. And if you ever do manage to keep these crayfish yourself and you give them enough sand, you'll be amazed how much they can rearrange the sand within one night. I would come back and you'd have a completely flat tank from when I'd gone and like skimmed off all of their kind of waste, given the tank a good clean, rearranged all the hides, and then I'd come back in and the whole tank's landscape would have changed. There'd be kind of like a desert, ups and downs, new burrows dug. So they'd all be digging these ones out, and you get these amazing kind of tracks where they've pushed out the sand using their front claws. It's really amazing, I said, how they dig these in. So I was really excited to get this footage. Said kind of, obviously it was sad I didn't manage to get the sounds, but getting the footage of them digging was really lovely. And it's really cool how you can see they use those front claws as bulldozers to push through. So talking more about the tank, so what has happened to the tank? So initially when I got these crayfish, I was looking into specifically aquaponics, and these, as some of you may not know, the Australian red-clawed crayfish is a edible crayfish and is eaten in some parts of the world. You can just see Cray there reacting to me as I'm walking by the tank. They do kind of run back in. I said when you make any quite sudden movements near the tank, they will see you and kind of go back into their burrows. So as I was saying, I initially got these crayfish to do a aquaponics project, and I was trying to look at if crayfish would be a viable option for an aquaponics system, which would require you to have multiple crayfish within a system and kind of see how they interacted with each other. And from my side of really wanting to be fair to the animals, I wanted to make sure that I could keep a few first, observe them in a aquarium, give them kind of the most natural environment I could, and really see how they reacted, how they used that environment, and if obviously they would be suitable for a aquaponic system, because a lot of people are just basically using fish, things like tilapia, carp, or ornamentals like goldfish and koi. So what I decided, unfortunately, is that the crayfish were not suitable, and the main reason for that was their levels of aggression. When they were shedding, they basically would try to attack each other, or they'd show kind of signs of harassing each other post a shed. And if you read about crayfish, it's something that people talk about, and if you keep them in aquariums, it's something that they say that you need to be very aware of. Said having your crayfish all together, said that they can kind of attack each other when they do have that softness of their shell post shed. So that was a kind of really big concern, and it seems like in a lot of these systems that people have, there's a few people have videos on the internet showing them, it seems that there's a certain percentage of loss they kind of have within their system that they're happy with, and that wasn't really something that I was wanting to enter into. Just looking at the footage here, I said this is post one of the sheds. You can see again the shell off. I'm just going to go and explore the rest of the tank. Back onto the subject, so I said I wasn't really happy with that kind of the need for the amount of space. I said a lot of these systems as well where they're growing in, they don't have that volume of sand, so the sand isn't really practical in the aquaponic system, and the need to continuously clean the system out as well just really didn't work out, and that's why I was kind of basically moving away from that. The other thing is I live, I said, 13 miles away from my studio where this tank is actually based, so having to come in, I needed to come in every day to make sure that the crayfish were okay, that they were fed, they hadn't shed, and for example needed a space for one of them to go sit in, that all the filters are working okay, all the pumps are working okay, and I was really happy doing that. But it just, I said, when it started to rack up, I said needing to travel across town to do that, I said really started to put quite a lot of stress and kind of really sort of eat up my time. I didn't feel like I could do justice to these animals, so that's why I went and found a different home for them basically. So I've passed them on to someone else, and I'm glad that they're going to have, like, I was at the point where I was going to need to exchange their tank for a bigger tank, so I was basically realising that these guys needed a much bigger tank each, and I only said initially that was the tank for the holding tank. So they've moved on to another home, so I'm afraid they are now gone, and they've moved on. I said it, they are in a good place now. I said, unfortunately, I'm not going to be getting any more shots of these, so these are some of the last shots, as you can see, of Crayola, Cray, and Donald. Apparently Donald should be called Donaldina, so I kind of got that one wrong. But you can see there, they were quite happy in some ways with each other, but there was a degree of tension, I said, also with the space, which is why they needed a slightly larger tank. So as you can see, guys, as I said, the tank has moved out of this corner, and currently, if we just spin around, it's sitting over here with a mouse inside. There's going to be another video explaining why there's a mouse inside the tank at the moment, but the permanent resting space of the tank is actually going to be outside my studio and along this wall here. So down the base of this section here, the tank is going to come here, and then above here is going to be an aquaponic system. And what I was initially testing on this system was we were trying to see if crayfish would be suitable for this system and if I could keep them permanently. However, I think they're just a bit too territorial to really fit into the system, and that was kind of a major takeaway I had from this system, is that you'd need a really large amount of space because you wanted to put quite a few in there, and the space required was just kind of prohibitive for the system. This is kind of the workspace that I'm in. If I spin you guys around, this is the workspace that I'm in at the moment. What we are going to be doing is we have a few systems over here. I'm currently growing some chilies and stuff, and you can see underneath here we have goldfish in these tanks, and these guys need to be moving on, so that is what is going to be going into the system. So we have 3 goldfish tanks. We have more tanks downstairs for slightly larger fish, but that is the fish of choice. Unfortunately, I said it's just a lot more stable, it works a lot better. I'm extremely interested in the keeping crayfish more. As I said, I'm very interested in the concept. I really enjoy keeping them. They're beautiful animals. Maybe more on a pets basis, but not on a scalable system for aquaponics. So if that is something that you'd be interested in me trying to find a way to keep, as I've already mentioned, because I'm not here all the time, it was put putting a lot of stress on me, kind of keeping them, having to pop in every day to make sure they were alright. Had they shed? Did they have the right food for that time? Had one like kind of aggressed on one of the others? That was kind of putting me under a bit too much mental stress to be only looking after them. Having to pop in every single day, and I said I'm about 13 miles from where I live in this studio space, so I said if that's something that you guys would be interested to see, so I may see if I can try to find a way to look after them, maybe put them in a tank that's in the communal space of the lab, and therefore we'd be able to kind of share the ownership and the care of the crayfish. So let me know in the comments, guys. Obviously it's a bit upsetting, I know for you guys to know that the crayfish have kind of gone on to a better home now, but as I said, it was something that I had to do. I kept them for 6 months or so. They were really amazing pets to keep, really beautiful animals. I'd recommend them to anyone who has the ability to kind of be there day to day, want to look after them, and they'll be a really rewarding, saying really too much, really rewarding, really interesting pet to watch, look after, see grow, etc. So if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up. I realise some of you are going to be hitting that thumbs down button because you're unhappy the crayfish are gone, but I totally understand that, so that kind of gives me some feedback. As I said, please hit some comments in the description so I can kind of know what your feedback is, guys. If you have any more questions, I can try to do another video answering a few last questions about the crayfish. And if there's any other videos you want to specifically see, as I said, there's going to be more hydroponic videos coming out. It's going to be the main focus, and some other stuff. So there's going to be a video for the green wall that I'm making. There's going to be a video why the mouse is in the studio. So there's a bunch more content coming out. I said I'm sorry I've been lacking on that, but I really am going to commit to it this time. So anyway, catch you guys in the next video. This is the Urban Researcher signing out.